What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of Wrestling Hypothesis Extra. Yeah, 16, man. Can't believe it, too. The secondary show of the Wrestling Hypothesis podcast here for your Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. Hope you are all doing well. Of course, I'm the ABA, and joining me this week is the King, King Kenny.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. I got my dad hat on. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
You got it on, man?
Yep.
Occasion. Great. Yeah. Before anything else, guys, you all know what to do. You guys know my spiel by this point. In fact, you probably are just speaking it out with me as I'm saying it at this point, with how often I've been saying it. But make sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on the series whenever we decide to drop. I mean, I know this is our first episode of Extra in at least 2-3 weeks now. So we're back at it. And yeah, we're back out with the content. Speaking of which, exactly. We did take a bit of a hiatus for those who aren't aware from making more content. There was no new episode of the show this week, but we are back now, and hopefully we are able to get out something for you guys in terms of a new episode of the podcast this upcoming weekend. So we'll let you guys in on that as of now, if anything does change. But you can check out any of our older episodes in the archives using any of the platforms we are available on, as well as visiting our own website, anchor.fm/wrestling-hypothesis. Now, with that out of the way, let's just get into it, man. So first things first, we are a bit behind everyone else in reporting on this piece of news that came out and sent the wrestling world into a bit of a frenzy, and for good reason. And that is that Vince McMahon has gone batshit crazy over believing that certain bigger wrestlers, in terms of size, that's what I mean by bigger, on the main roster are lacking in their in-ring abilities. And he has gone so far as to order these talents back down to the Capitol Wrestling Center, previously known as the Performance Center. They've since changed that name, of course, and be a part of 2 classes every week with the goal of refining their in-ring work. Yep.
Go on. The list.
Yep.
The list. You have a list of superstars, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Now, the interesting part about all of this are the names that Vince was directing all this frustration towards, which include the following. Dio Madden, who has been part of the floundering Revolution stable as Mace on Raw as of late. Nobody really cares. I don't see why you would. Daba Kato, who was, I believe, appearing on Raw Underground back when that was still a thing a few months back. Omos, AJ Styles' bodyguard, I believe, that he has recruited as of late. Otis, and Keith Lee. Yeah. Now, before we get to the real issue here and address the obvious name in the list, regarding Otis, because he is also a name in his own right, there were concerns about how stiff, apparently, how Otis was being towards his opponents in the ring. And to go back on it, you think about how this guy's 2020 began this year in a romance storyline with Mandy Rose, and was probably one of the most interesting angles heading into WrestleMania this year. Won Money in the Bank initially as well. He was on top of the world in his own respective way. Now he's since been separated from his heavy machinery partner in Tucker. He lost the briefcase, the Money in the Bank briefcase, to The Miz at Hell in a Cell, and now finds himself called out by the boss himself over being generally unimpressed of his in-ring skills. That's some fall from grace, I should say.
I don't know, man. I don't know. This news comes as of no shock to me whatsoever. Like,
I'm sure it doesn't. Like, you've shown you haven't been all that impressed with Otis, right?
Well, I haven't been all that impressed with Otis. I didn't think he should have gotten, the attention he's gotten, because the talent doesn't match the level of success that they're trying to push him to. So, so for that reason alone, like I thought it was bullshit. Like, you put a money on the bank on him, who's he going to beat? You look at Otis and you look at Drew McIntyre. Who the hell is he going to beat?
Very good point.
So for me, that was a freaking, his Money in the Bank reign was dead in the water, dead before it even began. So now that we got that out of the way, I have absolutely no problem with Vince sending most of those guys back to NXT for more training. However, I do feel like the Keith Lee one was out of pocket. Um, this is one of the best. Is to me, he's the most talented big man we have ever seen in the wrestling ring. You know, so it comes as a shock to me. It's like almost sending somebody, you know, like a Shawn Michaels back to the performance center in terms of a talent perspective, right? At least, and in ring, talent perspectives, he's that great. Keith Lee is an all-time great in the ring, for his size. So we know what this man can do. And the mere fact, the audacity that a guy like Vince has to relegate him back to the performance center. See, I get one thing. Like if you're sending him back to NXT, right? That's music to my ears. So you're not even using him, on the main roster anyway, right?
NXT
So
could use someone as entertaining and compelling a performer as Keith Lee anyway.
right. So I would have been okay with that. However, sending him back for training, like he doesn't. This is an all-time great we're talking about here. So for me, yeah, it's definitely out of pocket. It's out of line, and I don't get it, man. I don't understand it, right? But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Like this is what it's supposed to be. This is Vince at its fine at his finest. This is vintage McMahon. So for me, it's definitely worth mentioning that this should come as no surprise to you.
Yeah, I agree. It really shouldn't. But even so, like, and just to add on to what you were saying about like singing this guy's praises, Keith Lee, this man has given us some of the best in-ring performances of a performer in any promotion. You could argue over the past 2 years, if not like top 10 in that list. I mean, almost all of them came during his time in NXT. Not surprising though, seeing as how he really never did get off his feet off the ground on the main roster as of yet, and it doesn't look like it'll be anytime soon. Although, if we, and we're not really going to touch on this in this particular episode, but if the reports of the WrestleMania plans that are going all over, that are spreading all over the internet with him being involved in the WWE title situation at WrestleMania is any indication, then it might change. But I don't know, man. It seems like a complete 180 based off compared to what we're discussing here, with him being sent down to the PC for refinement on his in-ring ability. Why anyone, even the crazy Vince McMahon himself, as old and senile as he is in his old age, would even consider someone with the talent of Keith Lee to be lacking in his in-ring work is beyond unfathomable. Wrestlers and personnel in the company are all confused about the decision to send Keith Lee back down to the PC for refinement. It's complete and total BS. Why you would do something like that?
And honestly, I fear that this is the beginning of the end for Keith Lee. Like because the thing is this: you're asking a man that is already the best of the best in his weight class at what he does, arguably the best of the best in the business right now. Like you can't get better than Keith Lee. You know what I mean? So like if Kenny Omega was over 300 pounds, he'd be Keith Lee. He'd be Keith Lee. That's how lethal Keith Lee is. That's how great Keith Lee is, and we all know. So from that standpoint alone, right? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever that a guy like that, and you know what? As much sense as it doesn't make, right? I gotta give Vince credit where it's due. He's consistent. He is very consistent. Okay. Might be for the wrong fucking reasons, but he's very consistent. And which is why I'm not freaking out about this whole thing. Because this is like this is it. This is what he does. He stirs shit up. He makes decisions that aren't in the best interest of his roster, right? And that's why it's his product has been piss poor for years now. And that's why we don't even watch on a regular basis. You know, I don't know if you watch on a regular basis, Alba, but we don't watch on a regular basis. So I'm not shocked by it. You know, Keith Lee, like I and this is what you've I think this is what you've tried to tell me, you know, before he came onto the main roster. And I thought that his talent, right, Keith Lee's talent was too great to fuck up. Like, if there was ever a talent that is too great to fuck up, it's Keith Lee's. And they managed to fuck it up. They managed to fuck it up, right?
Yep.
It's almost like when we were talking about Keith Lee, you know, months ago about him coming to the main roster. It was almost as if, you know, I said to myself, I said, there is no way they can mess this up. There's no way in hell that, you know, because it's Keith Lee, you know, like he's so great and he's fantastic at what he does. But somehow, some way, like it wasn't the fact that they don't have anything for him or that they weren't really, you know, going anywhere with him, right? Because I figured at some point, you know, they'll figure it out with Keith Lee, right? It wasn't that, because that's obviously too generic, right? Because usually when you see superstars like that fall from grace, it's because they don't have anything to do with them, right?
Right.
But Keith Lee is different. His talent was so great, right, that they couldn't possibly not have anything for him to do, right?
Hmm.
So what's the other thing that you can put to stop him, to, you know, to put in his way so you don't have to, you know, pay attention to him? Ooh, why don't you send him down to the, you know, performance center and say, with a bunch of nobodies, and say he's in need of refinement? I got to give it up to Vince, man. I got to. This is a masterful plan. Like, if you never wanted to get deeply involved in anything, this is the way to do it.
Even though I
This
don't
is
want to
the
give Vince credit for anything, yeah, I can't deny what you just said there
yeah,
about him sticking to his guns and staying on par for the course for it,
yep,
for his beliefs
yep.
this whole time.
This is vintage Vince, man. It is. It is. We like it or not, par for the course.
Yep. So we're gonna see exactly what transpires from Keith Lee's trajectory in the company in the short term.
Yes, we will.
Moving, yeah. Moving on here, guys, with some more news. So this is something I want to get into. Last week on his podcast, Grilling JR, Jim Ross had some thoughts on a certain spot that we are accustomed to seeing in modern day wrestling, and he let nothing go. He said the following: "All you guys go outside. You cluster up like quail. You stand there in a huddle, friends and foes together, side by side, so you can catch some leaping idiot go over the top who never wins with this move. They are looking for the holy shit chant. They love to hear, 'This is awesome.' It's a spot, folks. It's a trapeze act. I don't buy into that." End quote. Jeez. Well, you know what? I gotta say this. This isn't anything groundbreaking. JR has gone on record saying that he isn't a fan, I should say, of all the crazy convoluted spots that we see in matches nowadays and wrestlers kicking out of finishers on the regular. Dax Harwood of FTR, who also shared his thoughts on the matter indirectly, tweeting out that, quote, "Imagine not listening to criticism from the men and women who've shaped our profession and paved the road that allows you to make a living today, all because they hurt your feelings," end quote. So we could see that Dax is on JR's side of the topic, but he's in the minority, as a number of talent from AEW are upset with JR's comments on a modern day cliche in pro wrestling, which is like JR said it best, the diving spot onto one or two wrestlers diving outside of the ring to a whole herd of talent, and they just take the spot and collapse. And to take it further, Darby Allin, the current AEW TNT champion, did say in an interview with Sportskeeda that he loves Jim Ross and he agrees with him on the matter as well. So that's his thoughts on that. To start off, I do agree. I actually do agree with JR's critique of the diving spots onto others outside of the ring, and here's why. I feel that, like JR, it is way overdone, and it is too convoluted. Have somewhere between 2 to 20 people outside the ring, all huddled together, waiting for one person to go up to the top rope and dive onto them like complete goofballs. Like, they don't learn from previous times that has happened before. They got to take that same spot 100 times and learn nothing out of it. Think about it. Most of the time, it's one person diving onto the other wrestlers, no more than that. And everyone has to sell the dive by collapsing to the floor.
Hmm.
It's not believable when multiple wrestlers who make absolutely no contact with the wrestler who dives onto them fall to the floor themselves. Like, how does that make any sense? And the worst thing about it all, whenever this spot is done, is that you see the wrestlers watching the person who dives onto them almost the entire time, for at least a few seconds too, and does absolutely nothing about it and just takes the dive anyways. What are your thoughts, man?
It's tough to argue with JR on this one. It really is. It really is. And I wanted to fight it. I wanted to be like, yeah, no, this is. But my thing is this: what the hell was JR all these years when it was happening? Huh? Huh?
Yeah, when it was becoming more and more common on the independent scene. You're right.
See, the thing is this: it's not even only in the independent scene. Like you see, like when he was working with the E, this shit was happening.
Yeah, it was.
So where the hell was this hot take when he was in the E? Huh? See, one thing I'm big on is consistency. And for me, you can't just pick and choose when you want to say something, right? You know, like there has to be a paper trail there. You know, because your words have to, match what what you're thinking, what you've thought, thought process. That's why it's called the thought process. And while I don't have any problems with what JR says, it's very difficult for me to sit there and not at least take into consideration what the wrestlers are saying. They're the ones taking this bump, and if I can remember correctly, JR hasn't taken any bumps ever,
Right.
at least not one that mimics that. So like if the wrestlers want to do it, if the wrestlers want, and get this is I would advocate, right, for this spot this way, in that the wrestlers that usually do this spot, you're right, like the move doesn't get them the win, okay, but you don't do the move for the win. You do it because you want to get over. You do it because there's something in you that that wants that feeling of uh what's the, like I'm looking for, like, validation.
Right.
Okay, right? Not only do you not want to be do you want to be validated by your peers, but you also do want to be validated by the industry itself, you know. And we've seen, I get it, the move is crazy, it's odd, like it's not, it shouldn't be done. And and trust me, when somebody stands there looking all crazy for like 5 seconds and literally watches somebody comes at them and dives at them, it's fucking insane, because I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Why didn't you just stop
Step to the side.
sidestepping?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, what the hell are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But that's the thing about wrestling. It's not supposed to be like, it's not some perfect form of art, you know, right? Like it's that's that's the entertainment version of it. The fact that you want to be hit, the fact that you that you let somebody hit you, like the idea, that's the idea of wrestling. It's purely for sport, for entertainment, right? You're taking all those bumps, right? Like that dive, I argue that it's not so different from letting somebody, trade blows with you. You're still letting them trade blows. Like when you throw a punch at them and the crowd goes, oh, for the for the
Right.
for the
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
face, right? And then the heel punches them back and they go boo or nah or something like that, right?
Mhm, mhm.
You can easily block those punches. You know what? Because they're so slow. in animation that, if somebody throws a punch at you, you're like, oh, but you can easily block it. You see it coming, right? But why don't you block it? There's a reason why you don't block it. It's for the moment. It's for that to capture the essence of that moment, right? To make the fans, to involve the fans in. So a big moment like that, right? Where an ass or a dumbass is just diving through the second rope,
Right.
or on top of the apron onto a sea of people, and all the people fall back to the ground. That is wrestling at its finest, at its
Right.
purest, at its art form, right? And if we get rid of that, it's like, well, might as well get rid of everything that makes wrestling wrestling. So the punches that I just mentioned, that spot too, you
Right.
can
But I
easily
could.
block that. So why not just, like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, I
it
see what you're
opens a
saying.
huge Pandora's box, right? And you don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
True. But I could definitely see someone arguing in the case of why the strike exchanges, like in the middle of the match, the comeback spot, you could say, why people would disregard that and just like say no, that wouldn't count compared to 20 people being affected by one small person diving onto them and all collapsing at one point, because that actually helps the drama of the match. It helps build to the drama, like the story they're trying to tell. Unlike the meaningless diving spot that one person could argue, it doesn't have to be a part of the match. The strike exchange, however, like it adds to the buildup of the match itself, and people get hyped over it.
Okay, so I mean, if it doesn't really add to the match, right? My thing is, does it hurt it? Like, do you remember the dive spot that Orange Cassidy did 3 weeks ago? The answer is no, you don't. Okay, you just remember that there was a dive spot that happened. You don't remember if it was like in a sea of better people, and even if you did, right, it didn't contribute to the to the match in any form. So I say keep it. I say go with it, man. Because the thing is this: at the end of the day, these guys are performers. They know what they're doing. You know, if they want to have fun, let them have fun. It's a fun spot. It's a
No, it is a
fun
fun
like
spot,
like
but it's got to be
right.
like. But wrestling at the end of the day, like like I get it. In order to enjoy it, you need to suspend, to an extent, a level of disbelief, right? And for a lot of us, a lot of the viewers watching at home, like we have a limit to that. Like how much can we overstep our boundaries to like enjoy something, even though it's pure unrealistic, you know?
Right. But that's just one spot though. And
That is one
if you're
spot,
telling, look,
but to a lot of
if you're
people,
telling
it
me,
is.
look, if you're telling me, right, if this is what you're telling me that, yo, Kenny, listen, that spot contributes to and to the detriment of the match entirely. Like if I see that spot in a match, I'm completely turned off, and the match to me, no matter how great it is from that point on, is a wash. If that's what you're telling me, then okay, fine. To you, it seems like that. But to me, it's like a spot that it's like telling me, like, you know what that spot signifies to me, right? And I put it in the simplest form because it is actually quite simple. That spot signifies to me the middle of the match, or this shit is about to hit the fan. This shit is about to kick into another gear. It's like an intermission for me personally. So if I'm watching that, if I'm seeing that, I'm like, okay, we're in the middle of the match. Things are about to pick up now. We're about to go into another gear. Where things are gonna get riled up, and that's usually what happens. That's usually what happens. So it's a middle ground for me. It's a like a lot of people see it as being disingenuous to the industry itself, right? Because there's a realistic feel that we actually want our fans to have, and that is true. That is true. But I truly believe that if you look at it objectively, it's not supposed to be part of a match per se. It's supposed to make you feel as a viewer that, okay, at least for me, this is how I interpret it. It's the middle of the match. It's a breaking point, right? It's an inflection point. So take it as you will, man. But that's how I see it. I don't see it as part of something that makes the match great or bad or
No,
anything like that.
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
speaking
know,
for myself.
I know,
I don't agree in any of that too.
I
Like,
know.
is it a minor critique? I mean, and to some extent, it is, just depending on the execution of it.
Mhm.
But it's not. It doesn't indicate whether the match is a wash or not. Not to
Right,
me, at least.
exactly, right.
But I'm
So
sure the
it
people.
doesn't
I'm
add
sure
to
the
the match. It
people.
doesn't.
I'm sure the people out there watching, there are people like that who do think otherwise.
Yeah,
That
but I mean,
the match is a throwaway because of that one dive spot.
yeah,
Like Orange
right.
Cassidy takes out 15 people. I mean, it's unrealistic, but it is what it is. It's just a matter of the execution of it itself and how often we see it.
Yeah, a guy with one leg. I don't know who he beat. You know that guy with the one leg in the E?
Zach Allen,
Yeah. You know
yeah,
who he beat? What did he beat again?
he beat the Big Show. I remember.
Yeah. Is that realistic? How's that for realistic? Huh? Huh?
Well, from what I remember, wasn't Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle run into? Didn't they ran in to help him beat the Big Show
I
or
don't know,
something?
man. I don't know. Hey, listen, leave that little, bit of, nugget aside, okay? All right.
Right.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about the actual way W wins and losses. Like like, dude, this is what wrestling is, man. Wrestling's supposed to be unrealistic as fuck. We know this. We've been watching for years. So it's supposed to be that. There's a part like it is what it is. Like you can't get rid of that. That's what makes wrestling wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, and that spot is like it's synonymous with it. Like that's the history right there. It's been happening since the beginning of time. Now, because you have a big, gripe with it, now we're all of a sudden gonna be like, oh yeah, he's right. Yeah, he might be right, but fuck that. Fuck that.
I don't know.
You
Maybe
just
from
agree
JR's
with me.
point, maybe from JR's point of view, he's just probably like it just really hit him nowadays because he is watching, well, all elite wrestling, that style of wrestling, the independent style, and he's calling it on a weekly basis now. So it's just more apparent to him than it
J-
was
please,
before.
please, please.
I don't know. That's just I'm just assuming
JR
that.
has been calling matches ever since he got out the womb, man. Come on, man. That man has seen that spot in the E over 1,000 times, I'm sure. I am certain.
Well,
Okay.
maybe with the level of how do you say? Maybe with the level of the frequency of how often we see a spot like that. Maybe that's maybe that's what struck him.
I don't think about it this way. When do you usually see 15 or 16 or 17 people outside of the ring in one spot? Like you see it, I don't think we have those types of matches where we, like in AEW, we have these 6-man tag matches, the 7-man
Lumberjack
tag.
matches.
Yeah. So I get it. Like the frequency that we see it is a little bit more than, if you're watching some other show where they don't have that many people ringside. But, my thing is this. I didn't know you had a problem with it until 2020. That I'm pretty sure that shit was around back ever since, lumberjack matches started. Okay. So, and I don't know how, I don't know my history all the way back there to who made the lumberjack match, why they decided to make the lumberjack match, but it's been happening for a long time now. Okay. And that's all I'm saying. It's been happening for a long time right now. And in 2020, all of a sudden, we see this as a problem. I mean, yeah, you can argue it's been a problem for a while now, but still, like, come on, man, you can't get rid of that spot. That spot is as dumb and stupid as it is. It needs to remain there. Okay, it's history. It's part of
Well,
history. It has historical significance. Okay.
well, maybe not completely abolish the spot entirely from wrestling, but I'm just saying like maybe do it in a way where it's not so unrealistic and takes you out of the moment, because I could see why someone would say, yeah, that spot would kind of like just how do you say, it just took me out of the moment for a little bit,
I see.
I'm just saying, like, let them figure out a way to have the wrestlers execute it a little bit more realistically, where they're
That
not like
spot.
watching the person for 10 seconds before they have to take the dive and collapse.
I mean, you're right. Like at its purest point, you're right. Okay, right. But 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 wrestling isn't meant to be looked to as what would you do in a real fight? You know,
Well,
like
I would watch UFC for that, but yeah.
right, exactly, and we do. Oh, I love the UFC,
Amen,
but
brother.
but you know, wrestling isn't like the UFC where you have like or like McGregor and you know Donald Cowboy Cerrone, you know, in a fight. Like it's not what you would do in a real fight. You know what I mean? It's a different feel to it. Like when I watch the UFC, I see guys take their fucking heads off. You know, like and it's fucking amazing. But wrestling is different, man. It's not. It's what you're willing to do for your opponent, right? And
Yeah.
if I'm willing, right, and if I'm willing to lay on my back, right, and take a bump with 15 other guys, so that Orange Cassidy can get over, right, and so that we can get more ratings, and so that I can make more money, so that I can put food on my family's table, I'll do it. That's what I'm taking from it. I'm not taking away from it from like, oh, it's a stupid thing because we all know it's stupid. We all do.
All
But
right. At least we're
it's not
acknowledging it,
about
so
it's
that's it.
right. But it's not about that. It's not about,
It's
you
not,
know,
no.
it's not about what you know I have to do to my opponent. It's what you can do for your opponent to get over. That's wrestling. Like that is what wrestling is. You know, and until people freaking understand that, then you know you're gonna have a problem with this whole thing. And I get where Jim Ross is coming from. You know, I really do. But if you're a nobody trying to make a name for yourself, what do? You make that leap. You make that jump.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. As stupid as it may be, man, you make that jump. And the crowd always eats that shit up anyway. So
Oh no, that's for damn sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And we'll leave it at that for today. Hope you all enjoyed another edition of Wrestling Hypothesis Extra. Thank you all for listening. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram for any news updates that we post on there, as well as any updates on our weekly show on the weekends. Hopefully, we will be back for episode 48 proper this upcoming Sunday. So until
It
then,
will be.
be well and have a good one, guys. Take care.
Yeah. Later.